Crimson skies. The starship Nightshade cut through the darkness of space like a blade of obsidian against the cosmos. Empress Valora stood on the command bridge, her purple skin luminescent under the glow of distant stars. Her eyes, twin pools of silver, surveyed the holographic display of conquered worlds with satisfaction. 3 centuries of warfare had expanded her empire across 17 star systems, each victory adding to the legend of the vampire Empress who drank the lifeblood of resistance. "The Orion system has fallen," Empress reported Admiral Thorne, his scaled face impassive as he delivered news of their latest conquest. "Their leaders have surrendered unconditionally." Valora's lips curled into a smile that revealed the tips of her fangs. "And their warriors, conscripted into your blood legions as commanded." She nodded, satisfied. Beyond the viewport, the red giant star Proxima bathed her flagship in crimson light, matching the color of the countless battlefields where her enemies had fallen. Her hand, elegant yet deadly, traced the path of future conquests across the galactic map. "Next, we take Earth," she whispered. The small blue planet had resisted her advances for too long, becoming a symbol of defiance that threatened her absolute rule. Behind her, Moros, her shadow guardian, shifted forms from mist to a sleek, 6-limbed creature with obsidian skin. "The humans send a new force to meet us." "Empress," it whispered in her mind. They approached Nexus Station. Valora felt a flicker of amusement. How many human armies had she crushed? How many champions had fallen before her? After 300 years of unbroken victories, the pattern had become predictable, almost boring. "Show me their leader," she commanded. The holographic display shifted to reveal a man with eyes the color of Earth's oceans. His face bore the mark of battles fought and survived, a thin scar running from temple to jaw. Captain Silas Drake, commander of humanity's elite Starfall squadron, stood resolute as he addressed his soldiers before departure. "We face the most dangerous enemy humanity has encountered." Drake's voice echoed through the intercepted transmission. "But the Empress bleeds, like any other, and what bleeds can be defeated." Valora laughed, the sound like crystal breaking. "Brave words from a man who has never faced me in battle, on Earth's military headquarters." Drake finished briefing his squadron. 20 ships against, an armada of hundreds, suicide by any rational assessment. But humanity had run out of options. The vampire Empress had consumed world after world, leaving only husks in her wake. "Captain, are you certain about this strategy?" Lieutenant Vega questioned, her dark eyes concerned. "Direct confrontation with the Empress has failed every time." Drake secured his battle armor, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. "We don't need to defeat her entire army, Vega. We only need to cut off the head." The plan was audacious. Bypass the armada, infiltrate the flagship, eliminate the Empress. Centuries of warfare had proven Valora's forces lost cohesion without her direct command, a weakness Drake intended to exploit. As his ship launched into hyperspace, Drake studied the limited intelligence on the Empress. Purple-skinned and immortal, she had appeared 3 centuries ago with technology far beyond any known species. Some said she fed not just on blood but on fear itself, that her immortality came from the terror she inspired across the stars. Drake touched the ancient medallion at his throat, a family heirloom said to offer protection against dark forces. He didn't believe in such superstitions, but after witnessing the fall of 7 colonies to Valora's forces, he was willing to embrace any advantage. "Approaching Nexus Station, Captain," reported his navigator. The massive space station appeared before them, already partially claimed by Valora's forces. Drake's jaw tightened at the sight of human prisoners being marched into transport vessels, destined to become either food or forced conscripts in the vampire's army. "Begin approach vector," he ordered, "and may whatever gods exist have mercy on our souls, because the Empress certainly won't." Little did he know that across the void of space, Valora watched his approach with growing interest. For the first time in centuries, she felt something beyond the cold calculation of conquest. Something about this human warrior sparked her curiosity, and in her long immortal existence, curiosity was a sensation she had almost forgotten. Prepare for their arrival. Admiral, she commanded. I want this Captain Drake brought to me. Alive, echoes of rebellion. The battle for Nexus Station erupted in brilliant flashes of plasma fire and explosive decompression. Silas Drake led his squadron through the chaotic maze of the station's outer defenses, their smaller ships weaving between the massive vampire cruisers with desperate precision. Squadron maintained Formation Alpha. Drake commanded through the tactical network, his voice steady despite the destruction surrounding them. Target their sensor arrays first, then weapon systems. His strategy was working, for all their technological superiority. Valora's forces relied on overwhelming firepower rather than tactical flexibility. Drake had studied every recorded encounter with the vampire armada, identifying patterns and weaknesses where others saw only unstoppable force. Aboard the Nightshade, Empress Valora watched the battle unfold with growing fascination. This human commander moved differently than previous adversaries, anticipating her standard tactics and countering with unexpected maneuvers. Interesting, she murmured, leaning forward in her obsidian throne. He fights as though he knows our methods. Admiral Thorne bristled at the implied criticism. Shall I take command of the forward battalions, Empress? No, she replied, her silver eyes never leaving the tactical display. Let's see what this human does next. Drake's ship rocketed through a narrow maintenance tunnel, bypassing the station's main defenses. Behind him, Lieutenant Vega and the rest of Starfall Squadron created a chaotic diversion, drawing the vampire forces away from their true target, the station's central hub, where intelligence suggested the Empress herself had established temporary command. Captain, we're picking up unusual energy readings ahead. Vega's voice crackled through the comm. Drake's instincts screamed danger. Pull back. All ships execute evasive pattern Delta. Now. The warning came moments before a purple-tinged energy wave pulsed outward from the station's core, disabling the propulsion systems of 3 Earth vessels that hadn't retreated quickly enough. Drake watched in horror as vampire boarding parties swarmed the disabled ships. It's a trap, he realized. She had anticipated his strategy, changing tactics. Drake piloted his ship directly toward the Nightshade. If he couldn't approach covertly, he would attack with everything he had. His vessel's engines burned white-hot as he accelerated beyond safety parameters on the Nightshade's bridge. Moros shifted anxiously. Empress, the human leader, approaches. Directly. Valora stood, a slow smile spreading across her face. Brave. Foolish, but brave. She moved to the viewport, watching as the small Earth vessel dodged, concentrated fire from her defenses. For a moment, their eyes seemed to meet across the impossible distance of space. Hunter and hunted, predator and prey. Though in that instant, it wasn't clear which was which. Prepare my personal shuttle, she commanded suddenly. I will meet this human warrior myself. Admiral Thorne stepped forward, alarm evident in his reptilian features. Empress, this is unprecedented. Allow the Blood Legions to capture him. Are you questioning my command, Admiral? Her voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Thorne immediately bowed. Never, Empress. Drake's ship shuddered as another blast grazed its hull. Systems flashed red across his command console, but he pushed onward, fixated on his target. Through the viewport, he spotted a small, sleek vessel launching from the Nightshade. New contact, 12 o'clock. He muttered, adjusting his approach vector to intercept. The 2 ships danced through the debris field of the battle, closing distance with each passing second. Drake's tactical display identified the other vessel as a Royal-class shuttle, used exclusively by the highest ranks of the Vampire Empire. She's coming to me, he realized with shock. The ships landed nearly simultaneously, On an abandoned mining platform orbiting Nexus Station, Drake emerged in full battle armor, weapon drawn to find Empress Valora waiting, flanked only by the shifting shadow form of Moros. Seeing her in person stole Drake's breath. Her purple skin seemed to absorb and reflect starlight simultaneously. Her armor, forged from some unknown black metal, flowed around her body like liquid shadow. But it was her eyes that captured him, ancient, silver, and filled with something beyond. Mere cruelty, perhaps curiosity, or even respect. Captain Silas Drake. She spoke his name like she was tasting it. You fight well for a human. Drake raised his pulse rifle, targeting systems locked on her heart. If vampires even had hearts. Empress, Valora. Your reign of terror ends today. She laughed, the sound both musical and chilling. Many have made similar declarations. None have lived to make a second. They circled each other on the platform, two predators assessing their prey. Drake fired first, a precision shot that would have killed any normal opponent. Valora moved with impossible speed, dodging the blast with millimeters to spare. Is that the best Earth has to offer? She taunted. What followed was unlike any combat Drake had experienced. For every tactical advantage he created, Valora countered with superhuman strength and centuries of battle knowledge. For every supernatural attack she launched, Drake responded with innovative adaptations of human technology. Blood, his blood, spattered across the platform as her claws tore through his armor. Yet he fought on, managing to land a blow that drew silver-blue fluid from a gash in her shoulder. You bleed, he gasped through pain. You can die. Something changed in her expression, surprise, perhaps even admiration. I bleed. Yes, she acknowledged. But death and I are old acquaintances who have yet to embrace. Their battle continued until Drake's strength began to fail. His movement slowed, his reactions dulled by blood loss and exhaustion. With a final desperate lunge, he drove a specialized blade toward her heart. Valora caught his wrist, her grip inescapable. Their faces were inches apart, her breath cool against his skin. Enough, she whispered. You've proven yourself worthy. Captain Drake. Before he could respond, Moros enveloped him in darkness. The last thing Drake saw was Valora's silver eyes, studying him with an emotion he couldn't identify, somewhere between hunger and wonder. When he regained consciousness, he found himself not in a prison cell or execution chamber, but in luxurious quarters aboard what could only be the Nightshade, Empress Valora's flagship. His wounds had been treated, but his weapons were gone. Why am I alive? He whispered to the empty room. As if summoned by his question, Valora's voice came through a hidden communication system. Because, Captain Drake, in 300 years of conquest, you are the first to make me remember what it feels like to be truly alive. Midnight reflections. The chambers where Silas Drake found himself imprisoned defied his expectations of vampire cruelty, spacious and adorned with artifacts from dozens of worlds. The room spoke of appreciation for beauty rather than the glorification of conquest. Enormous viewport windows revealed the swirling nebula beyond, stars being born and dying in magnificent cosmic dance. 7 days had passed since his capture, 7 days of recovery, confusion, and growing curiosity. His wounds healed with surprising speed, aided by treatments unknown to human medicine. Each day meals appeared, real food, not the nutrient pastes of military rations, though he never saw who delivered them. Drake paced the perimeter for the 100th time, searching for weaknesses in his gilded cage. The door slid open unexpectedly, revealing Empress Valora. She entered alone, without guards or even her shadow creature. Moros, you've recovered well, she observed. Her silver eyes assessing him clinically, Drake stood his ground. Why keep me alive? I came to kill you. Yes, you did. Valora moved to the viewport, her profile silhouetted against the stars. And you came closer than any before you. That makes you interesting. I'm not here to entertain you, he replied coldly. She turned, something like amusement flickering across her features. Then why are you here, Captain Drake? To die gloriously? To become a martyr for your doomed resistance? The question struck deeper than he expected. Why had he volunteered for what amounted to a suicide mission? The official reason, his tactical expertise and combat record, felt hollow under her penetrating gaze. To stop you, he answered finally. To end the suffering of billions. Valora approached him, moving with liquid grace that reminded Drake she was something beyond human, something evolved for hunting. And if I told you that, without my empire, those billions would suffer far worse fates? I'd call it the justification of a tyrant. She smiled, revealing the tips of fangs. Perhaps. Or perhaps it's the wisdom of someone who has watched civilizations rise and fall while your kind was still discovering fire. Their conversation continued into the ship's night cycle, a strange battle of words and philosophies. Drake found himself drawn into debates about governance, necessity, and the nature of peace. To his surprise, Valora listened. To his arguments, sometimes conceding points or offering new perspectives that challenged his assumptions. Your species values freedom above all else, she observed, pouring a crimson liquid into 2 glasses, offering one to Drake. Even when that freedom leads to chaos and suffering. Drake accepted the glass cautiously. Not blood, but some kind of wine. And yours values order, even at the cost of liberty. When you've lived as long as I have, you learn that most beings, regardless of species, crave security more than freedom. She sipped her wine, watching him over the rim. They want to know their children will eat tomorrow, that invisible enemies won't destroy everything they've built, and that justifies conquest? Turning, free people into your blood legions against their will? The anger in his voice surprised even him. Valora set down her glass, her expression darkening. You know nothing of necessity, human. My people were peaceful once, creators and philosophers. Then the Void Scourge came. They consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing behind, not even ashes. She turned away, her voice becoming distant. We adapted to survive, became predators to defeat predators. The Void Scourge? Drake had never heard this term in any intelligence briefing. They sleep now between the spiral arms of the galaxy. She faced him again, her ancient eyes holding knowledge that made Drake feel suddenly small. But they will return. And when they do, only the strong will survive. Days turned to weeks. Their conversations continued, sometimes heated arguments, sometimes surprising moments of connection. Drake found himself reluctantly admiring her strategic mind, while she seemed genuinely curious about human resilience and adaptability. One night, after a particularly intense discussion about the nature of sacrifice, Valora asked a question that caught him off guard. Do you fear death, Silas Drake? The use of his first name, spoken softly, in the dim light of his chambers created an unexpected intimacy. I accepted its possibility long ago, he answered honestly. That's not what I asked. Drake considered the question. I fear dying without purpose, without it meaning something. Valora moved closer, close enough that he could see flecks of starlight in her silver eyes. And what would give your death meaning? Saving my people, protecting Earth. Noble, she whispered, and lonely. Something shifted between them in that moment. Recognition of a shared isolation for all her power. Valora stood apart from her subjects just as Drake's rank and responsibilities separated him from those he commanded. Why do you feed on us? He asked suddenly. Is it just for sustenance or something more? The question seemed to surprise her. When I take blood, I take more than physical nourishment. I glimpse memories, emotions, the essence of a being. It is intimate. Her voice softened on the last word. Is that why you keep me alive? For future consumption? Despite himself, Drake felt a shiver that wasn't entirely fear. Valora's laugh was unexpected, almost genuine. If that were my intention, I would have drained you after our battle. No, Captain. I keep you alive because in 3 centuries, you are the first being who sees me as I am. Not just the Empress of Shadows, but Valora. She reached out, her purple fingers hovering near his face without touching. I have tasted the blood of 1,000 species, but never have. I met one who makes me question my path. The admission hung between them, vulnerable and dangerous. Drake felt the gravity of it pulling them closer, despite every rational thought warning him away. In her eyes, he saw not just the immortal Empress, but someone carrying the weight of civilizations on her shoulders. Your people sent you to kill me, she said softly. Yet here we stand, talking of purpose and meaning rather than victory and defeat. Does that not strike you as strange? Silas. Drake, everything about this situation defies explanation, he admitted, including why I'm beginning to see the person behind the monster. Our histories describe. Valora's expression shifted at his words, something like pain flashing across her features. Tomorrow, I will show you why I fight. Why I must be the monster your histories describe. She moved toward the door, pausing before exiting. And then you can decide if I truly deserve your blade through my heart. The door closed behind her, leaving Drake alone with troubled thoughts and the unsettling realization that his mission, once so clear, had become clouded by something he dared not name. Stardust whispers true to her word. Valora came for Drake at the beginning of the next cycle, her usual armor replaced by a simpler garment of flowing silver material that complemented the purple hue of her skin. Come, she said. Not a command, but an invitation. Drake followed her through corridors of the Nightshade, noting with tactical precision the layout of the massive flagship. Yet his attention repeatedly returned to Valora, the way she moved with predatory grace. How crew members bowed their heads in deference and fear as she passed. Where are we going? He finally asked as they entered a restricted section of the vessel. To show you truth, she replied, placing her hand against a scanner. A massive door slid open, revealing a chamber unlike any other on the ship. Drake stepped inside and froze in wonder. The entire room was a 3-dimensional star map, galaxies and nebulae swirling around them in perfect miniature. But unlike the beauty of natural cosmos, this map showed spreading patterns of darkness systems blinking out one by one in slow, inexorable progression. What am I looking at? He whispered. Valora moved to the center of the room, the holographic display responding to her presence. The advance of the Void Scourge across 3 neighboring galaxies, she said, her voice tight with an emotion Drake couldn't immediately identify. 2 million years of recorded history condensed to show their pattern of consumption. Drake watched, transfixed, as entire star clusters vanished into spreading darkness. These are historical records? Yes. The most recent incursion was 8,000 years ago in your measurement of time. She gestured, and the map shifted to focus on a single spiral, galaxy. My homeworld was here, she said, pointing to a system near the galactic core. We were scholars, artists, scientists. We had achieved peace among 17 sentient species. The system she indicated suddenly disappeared, consumed by darkness, along with hundreds of surrounding stars. We didn't understand what was happening until it was too late. Her voice had grown distant, as if speaking from within memory itself. The scourge doesn't just destroy, Silas. It unmakes. Reality itself unravels in their wake, leaving nothing, not even the memory that anything existed. Drake moved closer to her, drawn by the raw pain in her voice. How did you survive? A small group of us were off-world, conducting deep space research. She closed, her eyes centuries of grief etched in her expression. We returned to find nothing, not ruins, not death, nothing. As if our entire civilization had never existed, and you became what you are now to fight them, Drake said, beginning to understand. Valora nodded. We found others refugees from worlds already lost. Together, we discovered that the Scourge avoids certain energy patterns, particularly those found in specific biological configurations. Blood. Drake realized. Life essence, she corrected. The more diverse, the more powerful the resistance. My people transformed ourselves, became what you see now, predators, yes, but with purpose. The holographic display shifted again, showing the Milky Way galaxy, Earth's spiral arm illuminated, in blue. A pulsing darkness approached from intergalactic space. They're coming here, Drake whispered, the implications staggering. Within 300 years, Valora confirmed. That is why I build my empire. Why I transform rather than simply conquer. The Blood Legions are not just an army, Silas. They are the foundation of a shield that might save this galaxy from being unmade. Drake stared at the projection, his mind racing through calculations and consequences. Earth knows nothing of this threat. Few do, Valora said quietly. Those who learn either join me or, she hesitated, decide the price of survival is too high. They stood in silence, the weight of cosmic horror hanging between them. Drake had come to assassinate a tyrant only to discover someone fighting a war beyond human comprehension. Show me more, he said finally. Days merged into weeks as Valora revealed the full scope of her preparations. The Blood Legions weren't mindless slaves, but transformed beings combining the strongest aspects of multiple species. The conquered worlds weren't simply subjugated but fortified with technologies designed to disrupt the Void Scourge's approach. During this time, something shifted between them. Their discussions lasted longer, often continuing late into the night cycles. Sometimes their hands would brush as they examined tactical displays, lingering longer than necessary. Her silver eyes would meet his with an intensity that sent electricity through his body. One evening, as they stood on the observation deck watching a binary star system, Drake voiced the question that had haunted him for days. Why tell me all this? Why trust me with knowledge that could undermine everything you've built? Valora turned to him. Moonlight from the distant stars casting ethereal patterns across her purple skin. Because in 3 centuries of carrying this burden alone, you are the first to look at me and see beyond the monster. Her voice softened. And perhaps because I've grown tired of solitude, even immortals get lonely, he said, not a question but a realization. Especially immortals, she replied. Her fingers tentatively touched his hand, cool against his human warmth. Those who cannot die must watch everyone they care for turn to dust. Eventually, many of us stop caring altogether. Drake found himself turning toward her, drawn by something that defied the boundaries between their species and opposing sides. And you? Did you stop caring? I thought I had, until a stubborn human captain made me remember what it felt like. She moved closer, close enough that he could feel her breath against his face. You should hate me. Silas Drake. I did, he admitted. Now I'm not sure what I feel. The moment balanced on a knife's edge of possibility. Her silver eyes searched his, looking for permission, for acceptance. Drake reached up, brushing his fingers against her face in silent answer to her unspoken question. Their lips met in a kiss that transcended species and enmity. Centuries of isolation melted as Valora pressed against him, her immortal strength carefully restrained. Drake pulled her closer, his humanity a counterpoint to her alien nature. They explored each other with increasing urgency, predator and prey becoming partners in a dance as old as life itself. Later, as they lay entwined among silk sheets in Valora's private chambers, Drake traced the intricate patterns that adorned her purple skin. The Admiral watches me, he said quietly. He suspects something has changed. Valora's expression darkened. Thorn has always resented my authority, believing that pure conquest should be our path. She sat up the sheet, falling away from her bare shoulders. He doesn't understand the true enemy we face, sees only power to be gained. And your other commanders? Some share his ambition. Others remain loyal to our original purpose. She turned to face Drake suddenly, serious. If they discover what has grown between us, they will see it as weakness, a corruption of the Empire's foundation. Drake pulled her back into his arms, feeling the coolness of her skin against his. Then we're both surrounded by enemies, he murmured. My people want you dead. Yours would execute me as a corrupting influence. Perhaps, she whispered against his neck. Or perhaps there is another path, one neither of us has considered. What path could possibly bridge the gulf between vampire Empress and human captain? He asked. She raised herself on one arm, looking down at him with ancient eyes that now held something new, hope. One where we fight the true enemy together. Not as conqueror and conquered, but as allies, as dawn approached, bringing with it the reality of their impossible situation. They clung to each other with increasing desperation, both knowing that forces were already in motion that threatened to tear apart their newfound connection. Whatever comes, Valora whispered against his lips. Remember this night. Remember that even immortals can change, can learn to love again. Drake kissed her deeply, his heart racing with emotions he had never expected to feel for his sworn enemy. And remember that humans, for all our fragility, never stop fighting for what matters. Across the ship, Admiral Thorn convened a secret meeting of disaffected commanders. The Empress has been compromised, he hissed, his reptilian features twisted with disgust. The human has bewitched her, weakened her resolve. What would you have us do? Asked Commander Vex, one of Thorn's most loyal supporters. Thorn's eyes narrowed to slits of hatred. We remove them both. The time has come for new leadership that embraces our true nature as conquerors, unknown to both lovers and conspirators. Another force approached from the depths of space, an advanced scout of the very enemy Valora had fought so long to prepare against. Eternal dawn. The first warning came as a subtle disturbance in the ship's sensors. A flicker in the void beyond normal space. Something that shouldn't exist by any laws of physics known to vampire or human. Drake, reviewing defensive systems with Lieutenant Commander Cora, one of the few among Valora's officers who had cautiously accepted their alliance, noticed the anomaly first. That pattern, he muttered, pointing to the readout. It matches the Void Scourge signatures from your historical records. Cora's expression tightened with fear, an emotion rarely seen among Valora's hardened warriors. Impossible. They shouldn't be here for centuries. Unless they've accelerated their advance. Drake was already moving toward the bridge, his mind racing through tactical scenarios, each more desperate than the last. They found Valora in heated argument with Admiral Thorn, surrounded by a circle of officers whose divided loyalties were evident in their postures. Your obsession with this human has weakened our position in 7 systems, Empress, Thorn was saying. His scaled face twisted with barely concealed contempt. The Blood Legions question your resolve, your commitment to... Empress Drake interrupted, ignoring protocol. Something's approaching from the outer rim. The signature matches your records of the Scourge. The bridge fell silent, tension shifting from internal politics to external threat in an instant. Valora's eyes met Drake's across the command center, understanding passing between them without words. Full sensor sweep, she ordered, her voice cutting through the silence. Deploy reconnaissance drones to coordinates 7-3 Mark IV. Admiral Thorn stepped forward. Skepticism evident in his stance. This is clearly a distraction, Empress. Another attempt by your human pet to disrupt our chain of command. Silence. Valora's command held the weight of centuries, freezing Thorn mid-sentence. If you value your existence, Admiral, you will attend to your duties. The sensor data confirmed their worst fears. A Void Scourge scout vessel had somehow penetrated the galaxy's outer boundary millennia ahead of projected timelines. Its presence represented an imminent threat, not just to the Vampire Empire but to all life in the Milky Way. It must not be allowed to report back to the main hive, Valora stated, studying the tactical display with grim determination. We intercept and destroy it now. For 12 hours, the Nightshade and its escort vessels pursued the Scourge Scout through the twisted realms of subspace. Drake worked alongside Valora's tacticians, his human perspective offering insights that complemented their centuries of experience. Together, they devised an attack strategy that might succeed against an enemy that defied conventional physics. As preparations for battle intensified, Drake found himself momentarily alone with Valora in her private strategic chamber. This changes everything, he said quietly. If the Scourge is already here, then my work is more urgent than ever. She finished, her expression hardened by the weight of responsibility. She stepped closer to him, taking his face between her hands. Silas, if we survive, this encounter decisions must be made. Your people need to know what's coming. He covered her hands with his own. They won't believe me without proof, and even with proof, they might not accept an alliance with your empire. Then we make them believe. Valora's silver eyes blazed with determination. Together. Their moment of connection was shattered by the ship's battle alarm. Scourge vessel changing course, came the announcement. It's moving to attack position. What followed was chaos unlike any Drake had witnessed in his years of combat. The Void Scourge Scout defied conventional battle tactics, appearing and disappearing as if reality itself bent around it. Weapons that should have devastated its hull seemed to pass through dimensions unknown to either human or vampire science. On the bridge, Valora directed her forces with the precision of centuries, adapting strategies as quickly as the Scourge changed its approach. Drake stood at her side, offering alternatives when traditional methods failed. Together they drove the enemy into a carefully prepared trap, a gravimetric distortion field designed to hold the Scout in normal space long enough to destroy it. Now, Valora commanded as the Scout vessel briefly materialized within the field's center. The Nightshade's primary weapons fired, joined by simultaneous blasts from 3 support cruisers. For a moment, victory seemed certain as the combined firepower engulfed the Scourge vessel. Then disaster struck. Instead of disintegrating, the Scout released a pulse of anti-energy that rippled through reality itself. The Nightshade shuddered as systems failed across all decks. Artificial gravity fluctuated, sending crew members tumbling against bulkheads. Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, reported a Blood Legionnaire voice steady despite the chaos. Life support failing in the forward sections. Amidst the destruction, Admiral Thorn saw his opportunity, as Valora fought to stabilize the ship and continue the attack. Thorn signaled to his conspirators. Now, he hissed. While she's distracted, Drake spotted the movement too late. Thorn and 5 loyal commanders advanced on Valora. Weapons drawn. The Empress has failed us, Thorn announced loudly. Her weakness for this human has brought the Scourge upon us prematurely. By ancient right of succession, I claim command. Valora turned, fury transforming her features into something terrible and beautiful. You dare challenge me now? When we face extinction? Your extinction, not ours, Thorn snarled. After we eliminate you and your human pet, we will retreat to the inner systems, rebuild our forces properly, without your misguided restraint. Drake moved to Valora's side, his service weapon ready. You're a fool, Thorn, he spat. Retreat won't save you from what's coming. The bridge erupted into chaos as loyal officers clashed with Thorn's faction. In the confusion, the Shadow Guardian Moros appeared beside Valora, its form shifting rapidly between combat configurations. Protect the forward battery control. Valora ordered Moros. Without it, we cannot destroy the scout. As Moros flowed away to defend the critical systems, Valora and Drake found themselves fighting back-to-back against Thorn's supporters. Her supernatural speed complemented his tactical precision, each covering the other's vulnerabilities. Just like our first battle. Drake gasped as he disabled a vampire commander with a precise shot. Except now we fight together, she replied. Her claws ripping through the armor of an attacker, across the bridge. Thorn watched his coup faltering. Desperation replaced calculation as he seized a forbidden weapon from a secured locker, a reality phaser designed for last resort use against the Scourge. If I cannot rule, he growled, then none shall. Drake saw the weapon first. Valora, he shouted in warning, throwing himself toward Thorn. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Drake collided with Thorn as the Admiral fired. The reality phaser's beam struck Drake instead of Valora, his body illuminated by energies that existed beyond normal space-time. Valora's scream of rage and despair echoed through the bridge as she launched herself at Thorn, ripping the traitor's throat out with a single savage strike. Drake collapsed to the deck, his body flickering between solidity and something else, something not quite existing in their dimension. Valora gathered him in her arms, ancient tears falling from silver eyes onto his face. Hold on, she whispered fiercely. I will not lose you. Not when we've only just found each other. Drake reached up with a hand that seemed more energy than matter, touching her face one last time. Finish it. He gasped. Destroy the scout. Save your people. Save mine. Across the command deck, Lieutenant Commander Cora called out, Empress, the weapon systems are back online, but the targeting array is damaged. We cannot lock onto the Scourge vessel. With agonizing care, Valora laid Drake's flickering form on the deck. Keep fighting, she told him. Fight to stay here, with me. She rose, power and determination radiating from her like a physical force. Moving to the weapons console, she placed her hands on the targeting interface. I will guide the weapons manually, she announced. Prepare to fire on my mark. What followed would enter the legends of 17 species, the vampire Empress, blood flowing from wounds sustained in battle, manually, directed the most complex weapon system ever created against an enemy that existed partially outside normal space. Her consciousness extended through the ship's sensors, tracking the Scourge Scout through 11 dimensions, anticipating its movements with preternatural precision. Fire, she commanded. The Nightshade's primary cannon released a beam of concentrated plasma that twisted and followed the Scourge vessel through its dimensional shifts. For 10 seconds that stretched into eternity. Valora held the connection, her body trembling with the strain of maintaining target lock across realities. The scout vessel erupted in a silent explosion that momentarily created a hole in the fabric of space itself, then collapsed into nothingness, not even debris remaining to mark its existence. Valora staggered back from the console, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. She returned immediately to Drake's side, finding him still caught between states of existence. The ship's medical bay is destroyed, Empress reported Cora, sympathy in her usually stoic features. Then we use my private chambers. Valora lifted Drake's wavering form with gentle strength. And prepare a transmission to Earth, she added, her voice allowing no argument. Tell them we come in peace, bearing knowledge they cannot afford to ignore. Days later, as the damaged Nightshade limped toward Earth under flag of truce, Valora sat beside Drake's bed in her quarters. His condition had stabilized, though parts of him still occasionally phased out of normal existence. The reality phaser's effects had transformed him into something neither fully human nor vampire, but something between worlds. The irony, he whispered, his voice echoing slightly as if coming from multiple dimensions at once. I came to kill you. Now I'm neither alive nor dead, existing between states just as we exist between enemies and allies. Valora took his hand, solid in this moment, and pressed it to her lips. Perhaps it is fitting. The bridge between our peoples should embody both. Will Earth accept your offer? He asked, knowing that Valora had proposed an alliance against the coming scourge, offering technology and protection, in exchange for humanity joining the Blood Legions as equals rather than conscripts. Some will resist, she acknowledged. Change never comes easily to any species, but the evidence we bring of the scourge's advance should convince your leaders that survival requires cooperation. Drake managed a smile that flickered between dimensions. And us? What becomes of the vampire Empress and her human captain? Valora leaned down, her lips brushing his in a kiss that transcended physical boundaries. We become what we must, she whispered against his mouth. Guardians of two worlds, architects of a new alliance. And perhaps, in whatever time we have before the darkness comes again, we find moments to simply be Valora and Silas. As Earth appeared, on the view screen, blue and vulnerable against the void, Drake pulled her closer, his partially phased form creating a nimbus of energy around them both. Then let's begin, he said. Not with conquest or surrender, but with truth. Valora nodded, her silver eyes reflecting the light of humanity's home. Truth first, she agreed, then unity, then survival. Together they watched Earth grow larger in the display. Their impossible love, vampire Empress and human captain, had forged something previously unimaginable. Hope in the face of cosmic horror. A chance for species who had been enemies to stand together against the coming void. Whatever comes next, Drake said softly. I don't regret a moment since you spared my life on that battlefield. Nor I, Valora replied, her ancient heart beating with newfound purpose. For in finding you, I found myself again. And perhaps in finding each other, our peoples will find their future. The nightshade entered Earth orbit as dawn, broke over the Pacific light spreading across the planet in a promise of new beginnings, symbolizing the eternal dawn that might, just might, keep the darkness at bay.